The Pats look to respond after that brutal second half against the Raiders last weekend, and they have to do it in Miami, of all places. This is a deep dive preview into Sunday's game, and this is Locked On Patriots.
You are Locked On Patriots, your daily New England Patriots podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening? I am your host, Nick Cattles, born and raised in New England, been covering the Patriots for the last 16 years. Also co-host of the Greg Bedard Patriots podcast with Nick Cattles and a sports talk show host veteran. Today, we'll tell you how the Pats offense can turn things around against the Miami defense, and we'll tell you why belief in the head coach might matter more than anything else on Sunday. But first, the Pats try to win in Miami for the first time since 2019. We appreciate you joining the show, making us your first listen, and for being an everydayer of the Locked On Patriots podcast, a proud partner of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And this episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward, Mazda, Move, and Be Moved. Miami had a brutal day in Indianapolis last weekend. They begin their season 0-1 after being shellacked by the Colts. And a big part of the problem was the offense. Miami's 211 yards were the fewest since Mike McDaniel was hired in 2022 in any game in which Tua Tagovailoa started. And Tagovailoa's passer rating was the lowest of his career in a game he did not leave early, and he had his fewest passing yards in such games since Week 18 of the 2021 season. Lack of production, but also turnovers. Tua turned the football over 3 times against the Colts. First was an interception he sailed to throw to Tyreek Hill. Second, he just completely is careless with the football, holding it like a loaf of bread, fumbles it on a pressure, ball back to the Colts. And then he misses a dropping defensive end in coverage right in front of him and throws it right to the Colt. And I would also say Tua had 2 or 3 other throws that were very dangerous in this game and could have, maybe even should have been picked. Tua Tagovailoa was not good against the Colts. Yeah, they had a few good plays here and there, but overall his performance was lacking. And now they get ready to host the Patriots on Sunday. And they're going to host the Patriots dealing with a number of injuries, specifically on their offensive line. But before we get to that, let's look back to 2023. Mike Vrabel's Tennessee Titans played the Miami Dolphins in 2023. And to give you an idea of how the Titans did, Evan Lazar wrote the following. Although the Dolphins scored 27 points, 7 came off a pick 6, with Tua producing just a minus 0.13 EPA on 42 dropbacks, which would be in the 25th percentile, i.e., Tua wasn't very good against Tennessee in 2023. Back to Lazar. Tagovailoa was also sacked 5 times, which mostly kept a lid on Miami's offense. And if you're wondering how Tennessee did it, they played Tampa 2. They kept a safety in the middle of the field, and it drove Tua crazy. So there is some success when you look back to the history of a Mike Vrabel defense versus this Mike McDaniel offense of Miami. But of course, Vrabel needs a defensive coordinator on Sunday. And the question is, who's going to be the defensive coordinator? Because as we know now, Terrell Williams had a health situation pop up this week. Vrabel says it is different than the prior health situation that Williams went through during camp. Williams very, very unlikely to be in Miami on Sunday. Zach Core, again, is filling in for Williams, but Vrabel said he was unsure who would actually be the defensive play caller. Could it be Core? Could it be Vrabel? And if it's going to be Vrabel, I have some concerns because I want Vrabel to be that CEO on Sunday. I want him to be fully focused on all 3 phases of the team and the game. That's his strong suit. And if he's too focused on defense, too focused on defensive play calling, it could take away his focus from the rest of the game. Clock management, timeout usage, all sorts of things. Situational football, end of the half, end of the game. decisions to punt or not punt on fourth down. And if it's going to be Zach Core, this would be the first game that he's ever called the defense for. Yeah, he called defenses during camp, and that's nice. But we all know when the regular season happens, the speed of the game picks up. And when you think about speed, you think about Miami. Be a pretty tall task for Core to take over and be the play caller in his very first game against this specific offense. And we also have to ask whether it's Core or it's Vrabel or Williams surprisingly shows up in Miami on Sunday, will the defense be as aggressive as they were against the Raiders? Because if you're going to be that aggressive, you're going to have less coverage on the back end. And now you're playing with fire because of Miami's offense, the timing, the precision, and the speed, as I just mentioned. So how aggressive will they be? I would hope they would be less aggressive. Still be aggressive, but don't go bananas like you did against the Raiders. Now, the Patriots defense will have an opportunity to get after Tua Tagovailoa. Miami's offensive line is vulnerable, especially from the center to the right tackle. Jonathan Jones of CBS reported this week that it was trending like the Dolphins would have a new right side of their O-line. Now, Keon Smith was in line to start at right guard. Some would tell you it could be Daniel Brunskill who starts at right guard in place of James Daniels. Daniels was placed on IR this week. And then you have Larry Borum, who is going to start at right tackle with Austin Jackson out of the lineup. And last week, I watched that Dolphins-Colts game. The Dolphins' offensive line, they were susceptible to slot blitzes, safety blitzes, creeper pressures. So you can play games against this offensive line. And seeing that you got the backup offensive line at right guard and right tackle, you can play even more games and get to Tua. It's not going to be any easier for the O-line of Miami dealing with those types of games being played without two starters. You can look at center Aaron Brewer, good football player, but Pro Football Focus did have him ranked 31st in pass block grade in week 1 against Indy. And if you're looking at Aaron Brewer, if he has some trouble pass blocking on Sunday, that opens a door for Milton Williams, who, by the way, when you look at win rate among interior defensive linemen, the Pro Football Focus win rate through week 1 has Williams third overall at 22.6%. So there could be some opportunity there in the middle of that D-line. And hopefully Christian Barmore will knock off more rust, because it did look like he was a little bit rusty in spots against Vegas. Maybe he knocks off more of that rust on Sunday. Harold Landry, who ate against the Raiders, will have a great matchup. He'll be going against the backup right tackle in Borum. So Larry Borum versus Harold Landry, advantage Patriots. They should be able to get after Tua and make his life miserable. Miami loves the quick game, the slants, the in-breaking routes. They love throwing the football quickly. Tua last week was 16 of 22 from 10 yards and under. He only had 3 completions beyond 10 yards. This is a quick-hitting offense. Get rid of the football and let your receivers and running backs do the damage. In Miami, they were 24th last week in yards per play in the NFL. They were 27th in the league in yards per pass at 4.7 yards per pass against Indianapolis. Are you going to play man coverage? If you play man coverage, there's the dangerous speed element, and you could get burnt. Doesn't look like Christian Gonzalez will be out there. Looks like he's going to miss another game. Hopefully he's back week 3, but I am no longer guessing. I have no idea. And I wonder, do the Patriots at least entertain Marcus Jones on Tyreek Hill, because of Jones's speed, his quickness? Who do they stick on Tyreek Hill? Is it going to be Carlton Davis? Is it going to be Alex Austin? Is it going to be Jones? I would not be surprised if Marcus Jones gets some snaps against Hill. And what the Patriots have to do is they have to get after Tua, make his life miserable, pressure him. He gets very skittish in the pocket when he feels that pressure. He looks like a different guy. He turns the football over, and they have to take away his first read, because that also makes him very uncomfortable. Former Dolphins cornerback Xavier Howard spoke with the media on Monday, and he said this about Tua, quote, "We knew He gets the ball out pretty quick. And once we take away his first read, I feel like it's panic mode after that. And it showed yesterday. Here's the message to the Patriots defense. Get to Tua Tagovailoa. Get to him. Take away that first read. Play physical against the wide receivers from time to time. And let him just walk into turnovers. That's what they have to do. There's opportunity for both Drake May and Josh McDaniels to right their wrongs from week one. We'll tell you why and how they can do it next. This is Locked On Patriots, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered. Powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, this player delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For New England, Harold Landry delivered in a big way. Landry had a team-high 8 pressures to go along with 2.5 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and 4 quarterback hits. When the pressure was on, Harold Landry came through. No hesitation, no delay, and if you paid attention to camp, you know this wasn't a fluke. Harold Landry is on a streak. And just like Landry delivered for the Patriots, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18. That's November 18th. The NFL is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, which is one of my favorites, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. I mean, sitting around with your buddies on a Sunday and keeping track on FanDuel, there's absolutely nothing better. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. Again, right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So the question is, are you ready? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com. Again, FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. After Sunday's game against the Raiders, all eyes will be on Drake May and Josh McDaniels, and they should be, because both need to improve. And there's going to be a chance. There's going to be a shot for this Patriots offense to move the ball and do some damage, because breaking news, Miami's secondary is not good. It's just not good, like at all. Miami's defensive back situation was sketchy to begin the season, and Storm Duck, who was a starting corner for them, is now going to be out. He was carted off with an ankle injury against the Colts. And so who's going to start at corner for the Dolphins? Rasul Douglas will start on one side. If you're wondering, he signed with Miami on August 26th. He was unemployed until late August. He's going to replace Duck. And then you have old friend Jack Jones. Feast or famine, Jack Jones. He signed on July 26th. So the starting cornerbacks for Miami, they were not even in Miami until the end of July at the earliest. That should give you an idea of how desperate they are at that position. And their defense against Daniel Jones was rough to watch. Their secondary especially. 24th in the NFL on defense in yards per play. They gave up 6 yards a play. They were 19th on third down. Daniel Jones completed 75.86% of his passes, which was unbelievable. Miami's completion percentage against was 30th in the league. The secondary is bad. Now, for the Patriots to take advantage of that secondary, their offensive line is going to have to do some work. And their O-line has a challenge. Because if there's anything about this Dolphins team defensively that makes you concerned, it's the defensive line. Guys like Sealer and Robinson and Chubb and Phillips, they can get after you. Will Campbell has to make sure that he can keep Bradley Chubb and others away from Drake May's blind side. And that is going to be a tremendous challenge. But if, and it's a big if the Patriots, and by the way, Morgan Moses back at practice on Thursday, so it certainly looks like he was being managed, as was Landry during Wednesday's practice when they weren't out there. If the Patriots offensive line can hold their water against this pass rush, this defensive line of Miami, if they can do that, then there's going to be some openings in Indianapolis. Their offensive line, which is a good offensive line, certainly better than the Patriots. They did have some changes up front during the offseason, but they're a good offensive line. The way that the Colts beat up that secondary was by using play action, which we know Josh McDaniels loves himself some play action. Bootlegs off the play action. That was very successful against the Miami defense. And quick hit passes. Quick hits. Boom, boom. Now, you got to be ready. You got to be ready for the Miami blitz. Because Miami, if you thought the Patriots blitzed a ton in week 1 against the Raiders, well, Miami was like, hold my beer. Because Anthony Weaver, who is the defensive coordinator of the Dolphins, he's from the Baltimore Ravens. And we all know the Ravens, they will blitz and they will get exotic on you. Miami was number 1 in the NFL last week. They blitzed more than 50% of the time, 51.5%. So you got to deal with that talented defensive line, and then you've got to deal with a heck of a lot of blitzing. And Weaver blitzed Drake May last year an awful lot. And he'll use those exotic looks. He'll, quote-unquote, spin the dial like the Ravens love to do. And Evan Lazar had a note at Patriots.com. The Dolphins, number 1 in unblocked blitzers since the start of 2024. That means the offensive line cannot suffer from communication failure. Their communication has to be on point. They've got to make sure that these games are going to happen. The exotic looks are going to happen. And you've got to be ready for that Weaver defense. You've got to be ready for this pass rush. And if you can handle the pass rush, if you can do a good job against that defensive front, then you're going to move the ball and you're going to have a great chance of scoring points. Now, of course, for the Patriots to move the ball, it's not just on Drake May and pass protection. It is also, maybe even more importantly, I think more importantly, about the run game. The Patriots have to run the ball against the Dolphins. They can't do what they did against the Raiders. They cannot fall into being one-dimensional. I want to see more Travion Henderson carries. Now, I know he's not going to get 20 touches, but give him 8 to 10 carries on Sunday and see what he can do with that. Indy had a lot of success with gun runs, and we know Drake May was in the shotgun against the Raiders more than 80% of the time. Josh McDaniels has a lot of gun run in his playbook, and I think the Patriots will be able to find some openings with those gun runs against this defensive front. And once you start running the football, it opens up your play action, which is why you didn't see a ton of play action success last week against the Raiders, because the Patriots couldn't run. So run the ball, give us some gun runs, give Henderson more carries. That opens up the play action. It opens up the bootleg action. And you don't have to get super crazy with the formations and motion, but I do want to see some different formations, and I do want to see more motion than we saw in week 1. May's going to have his chances. When you look at the play action for Indy last week, Daniel Jones was 8 for 11 for 111 yards. And if you look at the 2 high safety looks that the Dolphins deploy, Drake May was the 3rd most efficient quarterback versus 2 high safety. Daniel Jones had 18 dropbacks last week against 2 high safety looks. He completed 88% of his passes for 177 yards, a touchdown, and a passer rating of 125.1. So Drake May, very efficient against 2 high safety looks. And when the Dolphins were in those 2 high safety looks against the Colts last week, they got absolutely freaking shredded. There's going to be an opportunity for Drake May to throw some hitches, to throw some out routes. When you look at the hitches and the out routes, Daniel Jones combined to go 11 of 14 in that game against Miami last week. When you look at Drake May against Vegas In week 1, he was 9 for 16 in his only touchdown on hitches and out routes. So the coverage where Drake May is efficient, that's a coverage that Miami plays a decent amount, and they weren't very good against Indianapolis in that coverage. And the types of routes that Indy took advantage of that Miami secondary with are the types of routes that Drake May fared well against Vegas. It adds up. There's going to be some opportunity for Drake May, but you've got to protect him. He's got to take care of the football. He has to be more decisive. He's got to make better decisions. And most of all, you're going to have to establish the run. All right, we have many more critical thoughts to share and matchups to break down, as well as our prediction. That's all next as we continue with today's episode of Locked On Patriots, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. And this week's moment that moved the game forward is a comment from Stephon Diggs. That's right. Even though week 1 didn't finish the way New England wanted against Vegas, Diggs spoke to the media earlier this week explaining how it was great to return from the ACL injury and surgery that cut his 2024 short, and how he can move forward and improve with the team. The offense will need Diggs. We all know that, to keep that offense moving and their season moving forward. And when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to every quote, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Serious question as we get ready for week 2. Is anyone confident? And if anybody is watching from Miami, any Miami Dolphins fans watching, are you confident? Are you confident in your team heading into week 2? I don't think anybody is confident. This game is very, very difficult to call. I will have my prediction in a little bit, but I have some more thoughts and a little bit more breakdown. Let's start here. Has Miami quit on their head coach? I don't know the answer to that. Now, they did look a little dead during the game against the Colts. They looked a little bit lifeless in certain aspects for certain stretches. And we had a lot of talk about Mike McDaniel losing the team during the offseason, all the conversations we had. A lot of people, including myself, expected Miami to take a step back. Mike McDaniel is one of those guys that's on the hot seat at the start of the season. You go into Indianapolis and you lose like that. I think it's reasonable to ask the question, has this team quit on their coach? We'll see. We'll see if they come out on Sunday shot out of a cannon, or if they start with zero energy and we're wondering if McDaniel is a dead man walking. For the Patriots, can they respond? Can they respond to Vrabel? I thought it was telling when Vrabel came out and he said, quote, "Now we'll see where we're at," i.e., we got some adversity. We didn't play well, and now we got to see the tick-tock of our football team. And you don't have the tick-tock. You don't know what you got for the tick-tock until you face that adversity, until you get slapped in the face like they did on Sunday in the second half against the Raiders. You could say they got punched in the face. So have the Dolphins quit on McDaniel? Will the Patriots respond to Vrabel? I talked about motion earlier. I want to see more motion from the Patriots offense. You are going to see tons of motion from this Dolphins offense, and the Patriots are going to have to be on the same page with great communication, not be running into each other, not be flat-footed. We saw some of that last week against Vegas. Evan Lazar notes that since the start of 2024, Miami is second in the NFL with a motion rate of 80.7%. They move all over the place. You better be prepared. I talked about the Patriots having to run the football, establish the run the ball more effectively. Don't be one-dimensional. The defense has to limit the Miami run. Everybody thinks about the toys of the Miami offense and the Hills and the Waddles and all of that. Do not get it twisted. Mike McDaniel's offense stems from the Kyle Shanahan offense. He's from the Shanahan tree. And the run game is critical for that offense to be as good as it can be. You look at Shanahan, you look at McDaniel, you look at O'Connell, you look at McVay. When their offenses are capable of running the football and they get that part of the game going, you're in big time trouble. And last week, I think it was hurt by the score because Miami got down so early and so big. But the first half, Miami had 5 carries for 14 yards. So they just had no run game in the first half. They ended up with 5 carries for 46 yards in the fourth quarter. So a lot of those rushing numbers that you see, they're dressed up. They're dressed up by running the football in the fourth quarter of a blowout. They're especially dressed up because Miami had 2 carries for a total of 41 yards. That was the majority of their run game. So it wasn't like they were consistently gashing Indy. They weren't. Now, the Patriots, they had some issues. Not a lot of issues. They were really good against the run game for the most part. But when they had some issues in the second half here and there, it was because the Raiders were running on the Patriots' 3-cornerback nickel defense. And go back to Lazar for one more point, my guy Evan. The Dolphins ran 2-back groupings at the second highest rate in the NFL last year at more than 30%. They will have a fullback out there, Alec Ingold, and they will try to pound the football. They will try to just bury the 3-cornerback nickel look. And that's going to be the challenge. Miami's going to play big boy football if you have the 3-cornerback nickel out there. And then if you try to big boy versus big boy them, they will speed you to death. So that's the challenge of facing Mike McDaniel, Tua Tagovailoa, and the rest of this offense. Timing, precision, motion, run game. You've got to get to Tua. You've got to limit the run. If you do that, you can change the dynamic of this game on Sunday. There's no doubt in my mind if you can do that. Something else the Patriots need to do, and Miami had a lot of this as well, and that's how you get, hammered in Indy week 1. You had the turnovers for Miami, but you also had a lot of low IQ mistakes. I mean, Matthew Judon, old friend Matthew Judon, ran into a kicker on 4th down, extended a drive, the Colts got points. Like those kinds of things. Miami had 12 men in the huddle during a critical down. But the Patriots, we know, they had a couple of holds on 1st down, which set them up 1st and 20 against the Raiders. They had the Will Campbell false starts, the biggest one on the 4th down, which led to the punt in the 4th quarter. You had Jack Gibbons with an illegal block in the back, just killing your field position. You have to limit the bad football. And as Mike Vrabel said at the beginning of his tenure with the Patriots need to get to the point of taking advantage of bad football. And they did not do that last week. They had the bad football. Allow Miami to make those mistakes. One guy to look out for is Hunter Henry. Tyler Warren early in the game against Miami, settled down afterwards, but Tyler Warren, especially on the first drive, was a menace against that Dolphins defense. I think Henry can do some damage against Miami. Another matchup I want to underline here, Garrett Bradbury had a clean sheet in pass protection against the Raiders, which was very surprising to me after his camp and after what he looked like last year in Minnesota against the pass rush. He's got to be good again this weekend against Sealer, because if he's not, that can be a big-time problem for that offensive line. So the pressure is going to be on Bradbury. It is a tougher matchup than it was last week. This game is so tough to predict, and I'm not just saying that to say it. You can look at it a million different ways. You could say, well, the Patriots, they didn't get a lot of pressure with their 4-man rush last week. If they have to blitz, they won't have a lot of coverage. Miami could eat that up. You could look at Miami's offensive line and say they're dealing with injuries. The Patriots are going to get pressure on Tua, and that's going to change the game immediately like it did last week against Indy. You can look at it all sorts of different ways. And it's going to be difficult to call this game for anybody. And I think it's going to be a close game. I think this is a field goal game. And Miami right now is favored by 1.5. I'm leaning New England because I look at the offenses. The offenses have some of the same issues, but the offensive line of Miami is banged up. And then I look at the defenses, and I think the Patriots defense overall is better than Miami's defense, especially right now, given the status of the secondary in Miami. So I'm going to lean New England, and I'm going to say let's go with 24-20. I said field goal game, but I'll go 24-20. I might change my mind by Sunday morning, but I'll go Patriots 24-20. They get the monkey off their back, winning their first game in Miami since 2019. See if I'm right. That wraps up this edition of Locked On Patriots. Thank you for making us your first listen and for being an everydayer. Reach out to me on Twitter at Nick C Radio. Again, it's Nick C Radio. Don't forget to throw a comment in on the YouTube channel. It helps us a lot. Hit that thumbs up, the like button. That also helps us a lot. And subscribe. Let's continue to push to that, 6,000 subscriber mark. Let's keep pushing that. And thank you for making Locked On Patriots your first listen of the day. The NFL season, of course, is here. So for your second listen, go check out, get a double dose of the Locked On NFL podcast with Tyler, Roland, and Tony Wiggins. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We will see you, by the way. Have a great day. We will see you on Sunday live for the postgame. Be well, and let's see what happens.